It's the Fit for Radio podcast. I'm your host, Drew Titeman, and I'm here today at the Stafford Hills Club, like usual, recording the podcast in the same place I work out. If you haven't checked it out, Stafford Hills Club is the spot to be, Tualatin, Oregon, just outside of beautiful Portland, Oregon. Now, I'm here today with an old buddy of mine who's also a piece of seasoned beef when it comes to football in general, both at the high school, college, and even the professional level. Joined today, my buddy Travis Cole. How you doing?
Hey, buddy. I appreciate you having me on. This is always fun to come on and chop it up, especially when it comes to football. So appreciate you having me.
That's right. Now, you have plenty of experience with football. Now, one cool thing is you came from a big family. You were you were a high school household name when it came to the game. Now, you played at Lake Ridge. Now, before you were in high school, I know you grew up in a ton of sports. Was it like it is today where everybody's on a travel team and there's, it's just like an all year grind, or was it different back then?
Yeah, I think it's changed so much, and I think youth sports kind of before was really just, your buddies and your dads, whether that was basketball, football, baseball, soccer. I think a lot of it was just kind of local stuff, and it did turn into some things where you would play, teams. I know them football, we would come up to Washington and play a team in Washington and things like that. But I think it's changed so much. It's gotten so isolated with select teams all over and all sports. I'm not singling out one. So, I think the education that we need to give to parents, I think, is the biggest thing right now. You know what I mean? I think there's so many kids that are specializing, and I think it's creating some issues too. So.
Mm-hmm. And there is something to that, for example, I've got nephews who play lacrosse, and it's so intense now, and it's year round, and they're making you decide, like, are you a soccer player or are you a lacrosse player? And it's like, well, back in the day, in our time, we had so many of you guys who were playing football, basketball, and baseball, and allowing yourself the opportunity to kind of see where you shine. Now I feel like I've got a fifth grader and they're being forced to make a decision long term, which is pretty aggressive.
Yeah, I think the rigor of the sports have changed a little bit too, right? But I think what's happening is, which is really rough, is like there was an article a couple of years ago here in Seattle Times that was, where's the 3-sport athlete gone? You know what I mean? And I was very fortunate to play 3 sports all 4 years of high school, but you don't really hear like that anymore between male and female athletes in high school. So, I think the rigor of it and these select coaches that are pushing kids to play one sport. But what you're also seeing, and there's a lot of information out there right now, is these kids are playing, let's take baseball, for instance. Some of these kids at 12, 13 years old are playing 100 baseball games at 12 years old. You know what I mean?
That's insane.
It's crazy, right? But they're not playing another sport. You know what I mean? And so when they don't play another sport, you think about your body. It doesn't adapt, right? Like, think about all the fast twitch muscles in soccer, all the fast twitch muscles in baseball, all the fast twitch muscles in basketball and football, whatever, lacrosse. They're all doing different things using different muscles, right? It's funny. My son came home the other day from a baseball training, which he hasn't played baseball since obviously the summer. And he's like, he's been playing soccer all fall. And he's like, Dad, my calves are on fire. He's like, my quads hurt. And I'm like, that's awesome. That means you're using muscles that you haven't used in months. And so, I think it's kind of the education piece that we need to do a better job of educating these parents that get sucked into these select coaches and telling them no, you know what I mean? And spending time away from the sport, I think, is a beautiful thing.
I think that's a great point about the different specialized muscles, because like even when you work out, like I go to the gym most days and I would be considered pretty diligent on it. But if I go play golf, which I don't get to do very often with a 2-year-old at home, I come home and my everything over here is all like just cooked. Yeah. And it's like, well, no, I worked those muscles, but you didn't do it that way, and so if golf can make you sore, that's proof in the pudding right there.
Yeah. And I think, and I push for multi-sport kids all the time. You know what I mean? Like, I coach high school football. Obviously, I love football. I love the game of football. It's been beautiful for me. It's created so many avenues for growth in my life. But I'm really happy that my dad pushed me to play multiple sports. And I even got a chance to play baseball in college, for a year. And it was one of the most, it was one of the most fun times I've ever had at University of Minnesota. I was there on football scholarship, but I got to play a year of baseball. And I just remember not everybody gets these opportunities. And I think, it's our job is to make sure we continue to push these kids to play multiple sports. It gets their minds away from other things. It gets there's different relationships that are involved from different kids all over. And I think there's so many different things that just create more success with kids. And there's burnout too, right, Drew? I mean, there's so much burnout with kids that are playing one sport, whether that's only lacrosse, only soccer, only football, only this. And so we push our kids in high school football. Like, if you're not doing anything in the winter, you're in the weight room. But if you're not doing, you're doing something in the spring, like what you're throwing shot put, you're running track, you're playing baseball, you're playing lacrosse. If you're not doing something, we're pushing kids to do that. And I think it's because there is information out there that says the kids that do more in multi-sport have more success, and there's less injuries too.
That's a good point. The injuries. Now, it's funny that multi-sport, because I think back to the Letterman's jackets back in the day. Your Letterman jacket looked like the vest at a TGI Fridays. That thing had flair on it. It's some of you guys were so packed in. Mine was light for sure. Yeah. Now, while you're at Lake Ridge, you see success playing football. And at what point in high school do you become the starting quarterback for Lake Ridge?
It's funny, because I was a receiver, right? And, I felt like I wanted, I wore 80, I'm a Jerry Rice fan, I'm a Niners fan. So, I was really big into just being I wanted to be Jerry Rice, and, I think, and Colson came to me and said, hey, we got to make a change here. And I almost actually quit. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but I actually went in and quit football my junior year or my sophomore year. And as I was transitioning to QB, and he basically told me, no. He's like, take your pads and go home. You're going to be here tomorrow. You know what I mean? And so, before obviously Mike passed, I basically told my dad, and I basically told him that you kind of saved my life in a way. You know what I mean? And football has been that opportunity. And I think, when I transitioned to QB, I didn't know that I wanted to play football in college. I actually wanted to play basketball in college. And then my dad was like, hey, do you know how many 6'3" white guys that can't really play above the rim are in the NBA? And I was like, no, Dad. He's like 0.01. And I was like,
yeah, exactly.
But there's 6'3" QBs, all over the place. And I was like, okay, well, let's see if I can get my school paid for. And that's kind of where I kind of started to dive more into football a little bit.
So as that progresses, how does that look that you end up at the University of Minnesota?
Yeah, pretty raw coming out of high school when it came to playing quarterback, as I only started at, when I was 15, where some of these other kids are now been probably playing quarterback for 3 or 4, 5, 6 years, and they're not even in high school. You know what I mean? And so I was just kind of raw. And, I had, Portland State, Eastern Washington, Montana State, type schools. And I just, I told my dad, I was like, if I'm going to do this, and it was no shade to those, because even now as a high school football coach, I think all those programs are beautiful programs. I mean, if you get an opportunity to go play at Montana State right now, that's awesome. I mean, they're doing some really cool things over there,
But as an adult, you see that, right? As when you're a kid, you're like, I want to wear the flashy this, and I want to be the big dog.
Right.
I think that's just normal.
Yeah, this whole D1 mentality thing is kind of crazy, But I just was in a place where I was like, I want to see if I can play at a higher level. And so I actually went to junior college because Jonathan Crosswhite was an older name, but he was a QB, probably around your oldest brother's time. And he was a pretty good little player, and he was underdeveloped, and he went to Foothill Junior College, played 2 years, had 2 really good years, and he was a starting quarterback at Utah. So I felt that was an opportunity for me the same. I was very fortunate when we went down there to have 8 or 9, 10 guys from the Portland area come down with me. We had 10 All-Americans. We were 19-3 in 2 years. And got opportunities, right? And Minnesota just kind of was one of those places. I actually had, a lot of people don't know this, but I actually had an offer from SC. And
really?
Yeah, I actually had an offer from SC because our junior college coach was actually was friends. His brother-in-law was on the staff at USC. And so they had offered me a Scully. I was about to go to SC, and then Carson Palmer broke his collarbone against Oregon. And he ended up redshirting, and then the next year he ended up winning the Heisman, right? And so they didn't offer a JUCO kid. They didn't pull it, but they're like, hey, you go look at somewhere else. I think you're in a better place. And so, Hawaii, Rutgers, Minnesota, San Diego State, those were kind of my kind of go-tos. And I walked to the 50-yard line at the Dome at Minnesota, and I had never seen anything like it in my entire life. And I was like, I'm done. I'm here. And
Nice.
that's kind of, and that was so, Big Ten football, right? I mean, so much history that I didn't even know as a 20-year-old how much history that was there. And it turned into a beautiful thing for me, for sure.
Because when you go there, and now teams like Oregon, obviously now in the Big Ten as well, but at the time, the juggernauts of college football are all there, the Michigans and the Ohio States. And even as an Oregon fan, when we beat Michigan way back in the day, it was like, how did they beat Michigan? Like these teams are on another level, and they're held at this spot. So for you to get the opportunity to play against them at quarterback, that must have been pretty wild.
Yeah. I think, I was very fortunate. It's funny. It's actually kind of crazy. I wasn't the starting quarterback the first 2 games. I got to play in the first 2 games a little bit because we were playing terrible teams. But, we go to Purdue, and I don't really know like a lot of the history of things. With social media not kind of really around. You don't really know a ton of people. Like obviously I knew who Drew Brees was, and so when we go to Purdue, we're in West Lafayette, and we go in, and the starting quarterback doesn't play very well in the first like 3 or 4 series, right? So he ends up doing toss the wrong way and tosses it. He actually tosses it to nobody, And
you're a quarterback.
Yes. No, I'm not the quarterback. It was the start of time.
The starter.
Yeah, and he tossed it to nobody, and I'm like, oh, geez, And so we end up punting, right? And they come up to me, he's like, you're going in, and I'm like, oh, here we go, right?
Final
and I was
straw.
able to throw a couple touchdowns in that game and play against Drew Brees. I think Drew Brees had like 640 yards of offense by himself, but it was those things that kind of like once I got into a game like that, it didn't feel like it was too much. You know what I mean? Because you're playing in the Dome, and then you go to Ohio State, you're playing in the Horseshoe. There's 115,000 people. You're going to Penn State, you're going to Michigan, 110. It's wild seeing that many people and playing a football game. You know what I mean? But the moment wasn't too big, and I think a lot had to do with just the preparation that my dad and my mom just prepared me for all the different things that we did as kids, and playing against better kids and playing against tougher people just made that situation a little easier to handle, Yeah.
And I've always thought about that too. Autzen Stadium, I've been there a billion times, and it's loud, but the numbers don't compare. Like the acoustics definitely do, but the numbers don't compare. And I always wonder, so when you're down there under center and you're in like the noise zone, like near the 20-yard line at Autzen's where it gets really loud, how are you communicating at that point, or are you really? Is it mostly like hand signaling, or have you guys discussed it in the huddle and then you just wing it from there? Or because you can hear nothing, I feel like.
Yeah, no, I mean it's definitely changed now, right? I think the game is, coaching high school football now. We hand signal everything from the sideline. right? And so it's a lot easier to communicate because everybody's seeing from the sideline over and then communicating. All the quarterback really is doing is communicating with the O-line, right? Now there's things like full huddles, muddle huddles, tempo stuff. It's so much, right? That at that time, I mean, it's like 12 heads as close as you can possibly, or 11 heads as close as you could possibly think of, and screaming the play at Ohio State. And there was times, man, like I literally said set hut at Ohio State, and the running back next to me didn't even move. Right. And I had to call timeout. I'm like, I go to the sideline, coach. I mean, I said set hut as loud as I can. He's like, we're going to have to go to the knee up. And so where you pick your knee up, all this
and
things
that
like
lets
that.
them know.
Yeah, there's variations of it now that you're seeing all over the place, whatever. But man, it's definitely changed, the communication piece for just play calling and the certain type of plays for sure.
So, you got the opportunity to play against Drew Brees, which is insane.
Yeah.
We'll talk about your, is it correct? You beat Ohio State?
Yeah, we actually went into the Horseshoe and beat Ohio State. Is the first time since my dad was born in 1949. And my dad was actually there. And
Awesome.
I remember so vividly, it was a tight game. I think we're up like 20-13. And they play jump around. You know what I mean? And they play jump around. And so I'm sitting there in the huddle and I'm like, it's a timeout in the third quarter. And I look over and I'm like, the whole student section is just going absolutely berserk, And I'm like, guys, look at this. This is awesome. Right. 3 plays later, we score, we go up like 27-13 in the Horseshoe. Right. And it was dead silent. Right. And yeah. I'm like, we're going to freaking win this. We're going to freaking win this game. We end up scoring late in the game, ended up going up like 34-18 or 34-20 or something like that to win, and was able to throw, 2 or 3 touchdown passes in that game. And it was kind of funny. My dad was watching the Duck Minnesota game in Autzen, and the TV stream made a comment that the last time that the Gophers won a game against a ranked team was in the Horseshoe. And that was the year I was a starting quarterback. So that was kind of cool.
That's really cool. And you're a bigger guy than me, but at 6'3", you're not, massive, right? Like, so one thing I've noticed, and, I've gotten the opportunity a handful of times to go down during warm-ups of Ducks and Huskies games and things like that, where you're actually at ground level next to the players. And the thing I notice every time is, like the skilled players and the speedy guys and the corners, they don't blow my mind on size. It's athleticism. But the linemen that, and I don't know if they were as big then as they are now, but these dudes walk out and they look like titans, like they're so big. Like so you going from high school to junior college to the biggest stage of college football, was that transition smooth enough for going up those levels, or was there like oh, this is the show moment where you realize that these are not boys?
It's kind of relative in a sense, as you go from high school, you go to junior college, you go to big time football, and then you go into the NFL. It kind of just, it's an easier, it'd be one thing from going to high school right to pro. I think that would have been probably a little too much, but the transition from the different levels that I went, I think it was easy to transition. I mean, I had a guy at junior college who was, 6'7", 310 pounds. And then I had a guy at Minnesota that was 6'8", 330, 6'6", 305. So, guys were
big
monsters
boys.
No matter what you looked at it. Yeah. I mean, Wayne Gandy was next to me in my locker at Pittsburgh Steelers. So it was kind of cool. I had Wayne Gandy to my right, and I had Jerome Bettis to my left. And Jerome Bettis was the biggest running back that I've ever seen in my entire life. I'm like, that guy runs the football, and he's 260. You know what I mean? And and Wayne was like 6'6", 330, and he was. I thought he needed 4 lockers. I mean, that's kind of the way it felt was sitting next to that guy. So I think you kind of adapt to that process. And kids are just bigger now, though. I mean, I don't know if it's just years and years of just, the type of foods, the the different people that are getting bigger in what it is. But man, kids are bigger and bigger nowadays. It's wild.
And it's nuts how big they get while they're in the system, you know, and you see it with a lot of these guys, like with Jason Kelsey or, you know, some of these other guys that have retired and 100 pounds falls off of them. It must be so much of like the meal plan, right? And like you have to supplements and food to stay that big.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of research now, you know, based on the type of food that you put into your body, and even the people that are the strength and conditioning coaches, they're so good now with the being able to just build a program for certain types of athletes and certain types of positions. You know what I mean? And I think those guys have the money to do those things. And so we always talk about, like, you know, my brother's a big dude, you know, and he's, you know, he looks fantastic right now. He's been working his tail off to get down to a place where he feels comfortable. He played at 6'7", 320, you know, 330, and now he's, you know, probably 270 or 265, you know, and he looks fantastic. But we always say linemen are either going to go to 400 or they're going to go down to 220. You know what I mean? And it's just kind of funny to see some of these guys, it either falls off or it doesn't. You know what I mean? But a lot has to do with the training and the research that's out there for both.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's lost on a little bit because of the size of these humans. You talk about losing 70 pounds, right? And you know, like, just feeling more comfortable with that. If you put 70 pounds on my back, like, it's an unbearable weight, right? Like, it's something that all of a sudden I'm like loafing hard. So I think it's a lot for them to stay at that weight is dangerous for the joints and the organs and everything else. And I think with what you said, we're so much smarter with nutrition now. And I think that's a lot of it, why we're seeing bigger, tougher, stronger, faster people. Because look at the food pyramid. The food pyramid, I always say this, the food pyramid should be like Egypt, where they do tours around the food pyramid because it is so archaic. I mean, it is a fossil. Like, to put some of the things on that tower that you should, quote unquote, should be eating is borderline criminal. At any level now. So we're ever changing on that front, and realizing that nutrition can be optimized.
Well, I mean, think about, you know, growing up in LO, you know, with so many kids in the house, you know, I mean, like, we ate beef stroganoff and those kind of things because you can make pounds and pounds and pounds of that stuff, you know, for 8 people sitting down to eat dinner. You know, Michael and I used to drink like 2 gallons of milk a night, you know, or at least a gallon of milk between the two of us. You know what I mean? Like,
I have to say, I can't imagine that.
That's
disgusting.
But I mean, that's what we did, though. You know what I mean?
I know. And everyone had, and it was like that too. It was like everyone had that Costco drawer of like Kudos bars and just lunching out. And on top of that, before sporting events, you would all meet up and crush as many carbs as you possibly could the night before. And I don't know, you continue to coach and it's further down in the timeline, but when you guys do like a team dinner, is it still like a spaghetti feed? Like, how does that go?
It's so funny you say that because
got one coming up.
It's funny you say that, but so at Seattle Prep, where I'm at now, you know, we do like a theme of the week, and a coach speaks on the theme of the week. So it's really powerful, right? The kids get to see a coach, you know, talk about a theme of that week and just be vulnerable about some personal experiences and what they feel. But we sit down and we eat spaghetti and meatballs, you know, and I think it's kind of old school a little bit, but it's also
traditional.
It's traditional. You know, I think there's some things with it that the kids love, and the kids cheer for meatballs because they're, you know, it's meatballs and all sorts of different things. And so I mean, it's funny, it's old, but it's also, you know, it's kind of cool to see some things that are old. Yeah. I mean, it's still alive. You know, we try to keep these old school things alive. You know what I mean? And,
you know, they got the metabolism of a hot furnace, you know, these boys. And, you know, and I think that it's all relative. I mean, even, I was at Costco yesterday and there's a giant sign on the wall that says, 2,000 calorie diet is the average for a human being, but these things vary based on activity. It even says it next to the $1.50 hot dog. So, a guy who's out there grinding on a football field, he can have a second hot dog. Somebody who's, more lackadaisical, maybe skip the second dog, that type of an idea.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, the amount that these kids train and school is tougher, I think, and the rigors of those things, I think, kids are burning calories like crazy, and so the nutrition is better, like you said earlier, but I think just kids are still, they're still kids, and that's not going to change.
And I want to get into kids and the habits they have now when it comes to coaching. But first, before we get past your college days, on your wall back there, is that a Sports Illustrated?
Yeah.
That is framed. What is that?
It's a Sports Illustrated. Yeah, it's a Sports Illustrated article. My dad framed for me because it was the first time that my name was in the paper, and after we beat Ohio State, there's a kind of a little excerpt in there and just talked about, my stats are in there, but it was kind of cool. I put it up there just as a reminder, that it got me to a certain place, and hard work and tough moments and the extra hours of work that kind of was put in, I was able to, have some success and just kind of cool to kind of relive some of those moments sometimes,
And I think that there's no shame in that game. When we were growing up, I remember being in college and seeing you play, and like a little highlight would pop up, and maybe it was the Ohio State situation, but I remember being proud of being from the same place as somebody who was achieving this and realizing their dreams. Because it is such a small sample size. I mean, you look at it and you're like, oh, yeah, well, I played some college football. You beat Ohio State. You played against Drew Brees. I mean, there has to have been times years later where Drew Brees is destroying everyone in the NFL. And in the back of your head, you're like, there's a time where you're playing in a game against him and he's Drew Brees. He's just another guy at the time. But obviously he proved to be something quite special.
Yeah, I mean, the moments that you have are so they're short moments in your life, right? And I think when I'm teaching my kids now and teaching these high school kids is that like this you only have so much time, right? And so use the time and be your best. You know what I mean? And wake every day, try to be your best. And change other people's views. And help other people, and because you just don't know, they have this weird cliche thing like tomorrow's not promised, right? But it's real though, and you don't know when you're going to get another game. You don't know when you're going to get to play another sport. So just wake up and be your best. Try to put the work in and try to be consistent is what I try to tell people. And I think, these guys, nowadays, they with social media, with all these things, they compare so much, that we never really had to compare, right? The only thing that we would do is when our dad would go to the bathroom for 20 minutes, come out and say, hey, read this article on this paper. And I'm like, I don't want to read the article in the paper. You just
came out of the bathroom
and I have to then my dad, I'm like, can I get gloves on to read this paper? And I mean, that was our compare and contrast, we'd read an article that, this kid did this in this league and you're like, okay, cool. But it was in and out, whereas this kid did a camp with this kid and now they know each other. So they're friends on Instagram and now they're sharing each other's posts and seeing all these things. And it's like, they compare so much now, and like, I didn't necessarily compare, but I just was like, hey, Drew Brees is a great football player. Antoine Randall was a great football player. He was at Indiana, you know what I mean? And we had a shootout too. And to be able to compete against those guys, I think was a blessing for me later in life too. You know what I mean? Looking back and saying like, damn, those guys are good competitors. And so nowadays it's a little unique and a little different. Kids compare themselves too much to other kids. And I think that loses focus on what's really real, which is just trying to be your best and wake it up and put and work hard and make good choices. And I think kids get lost in that sometimes a little bit because they're comparing themselves.
And it's tough. I mean, with social media these days, and it's always right in front of you. With what I do for a living, you always have to have a social media presence. So you're constantly being judged by likes and views and all this stuff when really none of it should matter. I mean, it should,
Right.
if we could blink and go back to the times that we're talking about in the 90s, I would love that for kids to be able to hone back in on what it is that makes them special, not what makes the person next to them just slightly more special than they are. And,
Right.
you know, it's a tough time for kids, especially with the phone, right? You're always staring at it. It's always telling you what to think. It's great, like if you need a tutorial, if you don't know how to like change the filter in your fridge, that's great. But it's these little moments that just kind of build up one after another. You know, it's like in my life, like I'll put up these sports videos and like one will get 30,000 views and the next will get 600, and then you'll go onto YouTube and it's got 2 views, and then you're like judged by the latest statistic, you know. And it's what you should be able to tell a kid and an adult at this point, but we didn't grow up with it, is that it doesn't matter. Like none of that stuff should matter. It should be about how you produce on the field, in the classroom, as a person.
Totally.
You know, those things are what it's important. You finish up this time at Minnesota. How does that time come to an end? The final season, are you bowl bound? Does it end in defeat? How does that end of the college career turn out for you?
Yeah, it was kind of tough. You know, my junior year was pretty darn good. And, you know, it's funny, we lost to NC State, which was Phillip Rivers in the bowl game. But we actually had a 14-point lead and blew it. But that was my junior year. But, you know, my senior year, we lost a lot of guys on D. We lost some offensive players, and it wasn't the same type of year. I probably didn't have the same, you know, success I did as a junior. And so the last couple of games, I didn't play the last couple of games. They played the younger buck, but, you know, I still had this urge to want to play, even though it didn't finish the way that I wanted it to. You know, so I did get an agent, and I did work out for teams. I had some calls in the draft. You know, Pittsburgh called, the Redskins called and said they might take a QB in the 6th or 7th round. And then they didn't, you know, but I got a call from Pittsburgh, you know, and it was a great experience, you know. Never got to play in a game or, you know, really do that, but, you know, I was in camp and got to throw to Jerome Bettis and Hines Ward and Plaxico Burress and, you know, all these great players, and just to be around that opportunity was definitely like eye opening, you know what I mean, and seeing all these players that are so good, Cordell Stewart, Tommy Maddox, being around those guys, and just wow, the jump in language, just like how they talk and how they communicate, play calling, everything was it was like on steroids, you know what I mean? And I think that was my biggest thing of like, you know, like that was eye opening for me. And so I ended up getting cut and didn't really get, I got a couple phone calls after that, but, you know, my agent said, hey, there's a really good opportunity to play arena football. And I almost went to the BC Lions in Canada, but kind of fell through there. And NFL Europe was actually an opportunity for me too. And I don't know if you remember, but that year in 2000 or 2001, NFL Europe shut down. And so I didn't get a chance to go there. And so arena football was kind of what fell into my lap, you know, and it was a lot of fun, man. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I got to play 7 years with Arizona Rattlers and Utah Blaze. And I mean, some of my closest friends today are from arena football. Like one of my best friends, talk to him still all the time. And we played 7 years together, you know what I mean? And just those lifelong friendships, and no matter where you go and sports that you play, like that's what I miss the most is the playing, the opportunities, the making money, all that stuff was cool, but it's the locker room, man, and just those moments where you get to be with your buddies and just reminisce on all those moments. I think that's what I really miss the most.
Now, were you, just full disclosure, were you bummed at first about that the NFL door closed so quickly, or were you able to quickly pivot? What was going through your head just as a competitor and as a person?
Yeah, I was actually out to dinner with my family, and I got a call, and I was like, this is the Steelers, so it was kind of humbling coming back to the table and being like, oh, I just got cut, guys, and they're like, oh shoot, but yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely humbling. I think my competitive nature just said, hey, what's next, and I want to continue to play, you know what I mean, and so. Like I said, I was very fortunate to play till I was 28 years old. Not a lot of people get to do that. I even came out of there feeling pretty good, just even my body, my knees and shoulders and all the different things that come with it. Very fortunate to have, a good bill of health and got to compete, for 7 more years and be on some good teams. I was on 3 teams that went to the Arena Bowl, and we lost on the last play of the game 3 times.
Oh,
you know what I mean? And so
you're the Buffalo Bills of Arena.
Could have been Arena champions. Yeah, seriously. And I could have had 3 rings, and it's kind of funny. I still close to some of the guys that were on the other team that beat us those years, and I've seen the rings and the things that they have, and I'm just, I say bad things about them, but it's cool. I think all the stuff defines you, Drew. I think all these processes, all these things, all these situations that you push yourself through, the defeats, the failures, the success. I think if you can stay even keel through all those things, I think you have a really good chance of being successful in whatever you do, and I think you go back to that, Instagram thing, reviews and likes, and there's so much compare game now, man. I hope these kids can get to a point where they stop comparing. I teach my kids every day. I try to talk to them like, don't compare yourself to anybody. You are who you are. Your name is your name, and go be you, and it's hard because you can do that in football season for 3 or 4 months. And as soon as these kids step out of football season, they get sucked into something else, and I think that's our job, to continue to check in with these kids and try to be present as much as you can.
And I think that's you make a good point that a lot of it is, it kind of builds you into who you are. And, you're tougher for, if all moments were easy, we'd all be soft. And, like for me personally, like I've just recently have had to pivot in my own life, and you do one job for so long. And like you played football all the way until you're 28 years old. Now, outside of like Phillip Rivers, who you played in that bowl game with, who is defying the clock, most of us would never dream to be able to play the game that we love until 28 outside of a little city league, right? I think when I was 28, to be honest with you, I think I threw up in a garbage can at an indoor soccer game because I signed up blindly. And I demanded a sub because I could not breathe. And they're like, nah, dude, you're not in rotation. And I hopped the wall and threw up in a bin. Yeah. So you held That's it together at that time of your life. Yeah. For me, like changing my career and telling, like you having to walk in and tell your family you're cut by the Steelers. I just recently had to tell my family that I'd been laid off from my job, which is so hard to do, and to tell children and to tell people who look up to you or hold you in a certain light that now you're going to look different. But it really comes down to just, I'm going to be stronger for it. And if you don't let things break you, they only build you up. The whole strongest steel goes through the hottest flame type of thing. Yeah.
And it's interesting, these kids are going through that now and trying to navigate a lot of different things, the ups and downs of school, the ups and downs of life, the ups and downs of relationships and girls and boyfriends, girlfriends, and all these different things that these kids are going through. I think it's a little easier for us as adults to go through that now because of some of the things that we've gone through, and it's shaped us and other things. So, it's funny because I'm currently in the same job for the last 7 years, but during COVID, they let me go for like 6 months, and I love the job that I do now. And it's not just coach football, but I have a regular job, and I loved it so much that, it felt like it was ripped from me, you know what I mean? And I was able to push through that process and come back, and I ended up getting rehired back in like 5 months later. But I mean, if I didn't have gone through some other crap earlier in my life, I don't know how I would be able to handle that, at 40, you know what I mean? Compared to, some of these kids are trying to navigate that things at 16, you know what I mean? And so, kudos to you for, having to go through that and then be able to come out of it and be positive through the process too. You know what I mean? I think these kids go into such dark avenues of like being so upset, because of something happened that they can't transition out of it, and I think if it isn't for good people and good coaches that want the best for these kids, not just in sports, right, but also in life, right? Our philosophy at Seattle Prep is more than winning philosophy, right? So yeah, do I want to win football games on a Friday night? Do I want to win a state championship? Hell yeah. I wouldn't be a competitor if I didn't want to do those things. But I look at it as an opportunity to be transformational for these kids, to be better kids. You know what I mean? And so when they leave our program, they leave our school, that they come back and be like, Coach, all that crap that you said to us that we thought was a bunch of bull crap is real. And if it wasn't for me, realizing some of those things as I went through college, I'm not sure if I would have got through college. And I'm like, it's beautiful to see those things and hear those things and give these kids hugs when they come back, because it has helped them. It has defined some of the things that they've been able to do. So I'm very fortunate to be able to have the opportunity to call myself a coach,
Yeah, and I think that's so cool. And it's tough for these kids to know straight away, the big picture. For me, a perfect example is, I just recently went through this transition and did it with my head held up, but I was only able to do that because the last time this happened to me 10 years prior, I didn't take it as well, and I took it too hard,
Right.
and thought it was the end of the world, and
Right.
oh, what am I going to do? And then you look at everything that happened after that, and you're like, oh, all the best things in my life happened after that. And so, you just got to take it as another chance to stop down and take a breath, and then
Totally.
get back in it again. Because for me, I would just say that I also had it's kind of like, I'm not a coach of a team, but having 3 daughters, I'm kind of the coach of that team. And so I had to go, like, you can't make it all about you this time. You got to make it a bigger picture thing. And if you panic, the panic runs downhill and causes all kinds of problems. So for me, it's just you live and you learn, and a teenager hasn't had the opportunity, so they need a mentor like yourself. And I think it's pretty cool that for all these years that you've been doing that for these kids.
Yeah, it's been a blessing for me. I think I definitely become a better person. I become a different person, I think, in a better way. And I think, it's helped me become a better dad and a better husband and a better brother. And so I think it's just very fortunate to have some of the people, the guy that I've been with, for 18 years now as the head coach, and I've been his OC for 18 years. And he's been through so many things. He's a little older than me. And so he's already been through the ringer of life, and so to have a person like that can continue to mentor you and help you and help you process certain things, I think has been just a blessing for me. You know what I mean? And it's definitely helped define kind of the person I am today.
So here's another cool thing. I mean, I love hearing about the coaching and how you've kind of taken your history of football as becoming a leader of these men as they grow into their own, and hopefully some of them will branch off and do the same types of things that you're doing, and we can keep the ball rolling there. Now, you've got some cool things coming up here in January. Is that right?
Yeah. So our head coach was actually asked to coach it's kind of like the North-South All-Star game in a sense. But there's a handful of years ago where a gentleman that passed away of pancreatic cancer, and he wanted to start this opportunity for, as like an all-star game, but it's called Cleats versus Cancer now. And it's really cool. It's a really cool event where these seniors get to come in and kind of get one other game, and some of them may have our scholarships now, some of them may not, some of them may be looking for them, you know what I mean? And I think the buzz of this game, with where football is now in the Seattle area, it's pretty competitive. You know what I mean? And I think it's really cool to be a part of something like this. And with our head coach being asked to be the head coach, he obviously asked our staff if we wanted to be involved. And I think, there's like 6 or 7 of us on staff that are involved. And I think it's just a really fun opportunity, not only to coach for the cause, because my mom she passed away a few years ago of liver cancer, and so and to have a guy named Derek Sparks who passed away from pancreatic cancer to be involved and get this thing kind of kicked off, it brings these kind of people together for a really good reason. But then it allows us to play an all-star game where you get to work with some of the top players, top seniors in the state of Washington. So I'm just really excited to kind of see the level of talent. And when a guy drops back and he throws to a guy that's running on a dig route and everything's protected, but you got a D-line running at him that's an all-state kid. I mean, it's just a really fun opportunity to coach some of these kids. And if some of these kids can get an opportunity or a scholarship because of it, man, what a cool thing to help that kid through. They over the years they've done this thing. They now have about 25 or 30 schools that do come watch these games. You know what I mean? And I think what they're trying to see is another kid that can compete against an all-star, and see who kind of shines. You know what I mean? And it's fun for me as an OC play caller. Obviously with high school, I love our guys. Like I love Seattle Preps kids. I love what we do, but we don't have all-stars at every position, right? You know what I mean? And so I think what I'm excited for is to coach some kids that are kind of all-star type kids at every position and just kind of see, what the game feels like from there. And, there's some things involved that, you can't have 6-man pressures and all these different things that you can't do. But I'm just excited to be a part of something that's really cool and for a great cause.
I think it's an amazing cause. You talk about your mom. It's a good way to honor her legacy as well, to help fight cancer for future generations. It's something that's touched us all and is such a pain to deal with. So I appreciate you dealing or being a part of that to start with. And also it's such a great thing for these kids, even aside from the ones who are trying to get one last look. I remember the feeling of wanting one more game, just one more game. I was always that kid who I hate goodbyes. I would be the kid at summer camp who I don't like goodbyes, I don't like end moments. And so to give them an opportunity to just put the gear on one more time and just to go out there and just to lay it on the line, win, lose, or draw, scholarship or no scholarship. Like I know so many, especially football players, one more game, baby. They could just take one more. And it's cool that it can be in that capacity. Let you go, though. I do want to touch on some of the big moments we've got coming up in college football. And as you are a Big Ten guy, there are some Big Ten names at the top of the list for sure this year on, people are predicting Indiana, Ohio State, Georgia, or maybe Oregon. Those are the names that just keep on popping up. And I worry a little bit because people are kind of frothing the Ducks to the top of the list. Like, oh, they've got that same deal as Ohio State, and they're just going to go run the table. But one thing that I've learned from many sad, emotional years as a Duck fan is it's all gravy until we get into this part of the season. And that there are a few teams that are above and beyond everybody else you play all season. I think the Ducks realized that when they took on Indiana last time, which I did not see that drum punch coming. But the first round of the playoff should play out pretty easy for the Ducks. They are wavering between a 20 and a 21-point favorite against James Madison. Do you think they have anything to worry about there, or is that an afterthought?
I think it's it's interesting the way that the college football playoff and the committee and all these things. Like, I'm not even going to jump into what that really means and how they can decide who gets in or not. I get it, but I think there are some cool things that JMU gets in. I think people are pissed off about the whole Notre Dame thing. Like, I don't even want to start with that. But I don't think Oregon has. I don't think Oregon has any. I saw your take on the Notre Dame thing, and I was like, oh my god, spot on. But
yeah.
I don't think Oregon has any worries about the first round. You know what I mean? And I going into the second round playing Texas Tech. I was kind of looking at their schedule and kind of seeing who they played, and I'm like, I was like, maybe Oregon does have an opportunity to fly right into that Indiana game. You know what I mean? And play them again. So, but Texas Tech is good. They're going to be physical. They're going to be good. I just, I think Oregon is a good football team. I really do. But Indiana and Ohio State, I think are different. I think they're built different. I think they're coached different. I do love Dan Lanning. I love his spirit. I love his, like, the way he coaches with passion. But it's going to be interesting to see kind of what goes on after that. But I think the Ducks have an easy road into the second round. I think Texas Tech's going to be a little bit tougher. I think it's going to come down to obviously playing well, but no turnovers and executing on defense, I think, is what's going to be the difference of that game.
And Oregon's got a history. If they start fast, it's usually over. Oregon, when they put your foot on your neck, it's over. But when they let teams loiter and just hang around, we normally fall apart in that third or fourth quarter when doubt sets in. I think we're going to see there's going to be a lot to find out during this playoff about Dante Moore and the killer instinct part of him. He's already a great guy. I hear behind the scenes he's like a really good dude. And being an Oregon fan, we've had a lot of quarterbacks who are good dudes, but we've had some not so good dudes as well. So I like a good character person. That helps, but character doesn't hoist trophies. You have to sometimes be able to bite down a little bit. I am hoping and praying that the Ducks can get the job done against Texas Tech, and then they can come back, and then that's when they can address this whole thing and take care of the Indianas and the Ohio States of the world and finally get that monkey off their back. But I'm not saying I'm overly confident that it's more likely to happen this year than it was last year. Last year, I thought we had a great chance, and now, I'm not saying it's a less of a chance, but I don't feel like it's, at least at the offensive skilled positions, I guess we haven't been healthy enough for me to say that we're going to go in and just thrash people.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know how good Oregon is. Obviously watching that Indiana, I watched the whole Indiana game. It was a great football game. It was really fun to watch. You know what I mean? I think what it's going to come down to is like these teams that have these extra intangibles. You know what I mean? I think there's two different things that I look at, and it is, I always talk about, like, number one, can teams make big plays? When they need it, right? Whether that's from the quarterback or some sort of explosive wide receiver or running back, and then can you play defense? You know what I mean? And I think all the teams that have a chance to, I think, win it all have a pretty elite quarterback. You know what I mean? And so when you just saying the Oregon quarterback, is he elite? I don't know. I don't know if he's elite. I think Mendoza's elite. I think the kid from Ohio State is elite. And I really like the kid from Georgia too. So, I mean, those are the three teams that I think have the intangibles to win the whole thing, just because the type of play, the defenses that they have, and the intangibles at the quarterback that they have. And I don't know if Oregon does. We'll see. I think Oregon's going to have a test against Texas Tech. If Oregon goes into Texas Tech and handles them, or has a really successful game, it's hard to beat a team twice. So Indiana's going to have a hard time beating Oregon if that's the case. You know what I mean? Just because I do think it's hard to beat a team twice.
It's true, and they've got to prove it. I mean, Fernando Mendoza, I don't know why it is, but I just have this thing with him. And it part of it is, you know, he beat Oregon. That's fine. I'm plenty of quarterbacks have beaten Oregon and didn't irk me, but I don't know if it's the crying. I don't know if it's like, you know, he's just, I like to like the dude as well as the athlete. And when he's talking about, like, there's this amazing clip when he's at Cal. Go watch after he wins the big game. I think against Stanford or whatever. And he's crying and like, I put a little clip of it in a video, but the clip that I really love is he's like, we're all so close and we love each other so much. This is why we go camping together. And like, he's just like, everything he says, or like the thing about the glue, he's like, we're like glue. And then he goes like, he just has this thing that it's really hard for me. And I feel like the parent in me and the good person in me should not care. But when he did that interview, like, I'm in a text string with a bunch of people that you grew up with as well. And it just blew up. It was just like, oh my God, he's sinking in the draft. Oh, the NFL execs are rolling over. Like, just because the PR guy's got to be like, oh man, I got my hands full with you. Like, and I know that it's all cultural, but like when he called his mom mommy at the Heisman Trophy presentation, which is
mommy,
you know, not spelled out MOMMY, but you know, there's half of the hillbillies in America went, what did he just say? Because it's a lot. And so I'm digesting him. And my pro team are the Minnesota Vikings. So we're career losers. I know what that feels like. Ducks have never won a championship, but I was so excited to see the Vikings win a meaningless game on Sunday night to ensure that I will not have Fernando Mendoza as my quarterback. And you know what? People have gotten super mad at me, like writing personal messages and stuff about how wrong I am about him, and how one guy goes, he's the next Peyton Manning. And I go, dude, how dare you? How dare you roll in? The guy has not played one snap in the NFL, and you want to put him on Mount Rushmore? And the guy goes, I'm from Tennessee. I wouldn't say it unless I know. Nobody knows. I don't know. I said it in the video. I'll be the first to apologize if I'm wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. I look forward to that. I look forward to watching you apologize. But I mean, to be honest with you, like, there is passion there, right? I think number one, I think the dude's tough. I really do. I think he's tough. The lick he took against Ohio State. I don't know. Most guys won't get up from that. You know what I mean? And for him to come back and battle through and make some unbelievable throws, you know, I think is pretty impressive. I think he has some unbelievable intangibles. I really do. When not the way he communicates, but just the way he plays. You know what I mean? I think his arm slot when he slings it is so good. Throws the ball on time. He throws it to windows that are really hard to throw into. The whole mommy thing and the crying. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think there's passion. I'm going to give him benefit of the doubt. I'm saying there's passion there. I'm going to call it passion, right? And
I think that's fair. You know, and I know when I say it.
I think he loves playing football. No.
I know when I say it that it's inappropriate, but it's just, I'm not the only dude out there thinking, what? Could you just chill? I mean, you can be intense, like be as intense as you want, but it's just, I feel like part of it is, and you're right, he is a good football player. He just won the Heisman. You don't win the Heisman Trophy if you aren't a good football player. And maybe that's how he channels this killer instinct in kind of a, go get him, guys, that type of a feel. But I don't know. And maybe at the next level, maybe he'll toughen up a little bit more. And, you know, I'm not saying that the other end of the spectrum is right. You look at J.J. McCarthy, who won a national championship and is the Vikings quarterback. His tough guy persona with like no wins, that's also annoying. Like I'm in battle mode. I think it's anytime I feel like they're trying too hard. You know, I would also go out on a limb and say Dante Moore doesn't have enough energy in his passion. So maybe I'm too picky from a guy who never played the I never played the role. How did you address those types of things? Were you yelling for mommy? Were you crying on the field, or were you more of a laid back leader? How was your situation?
I mean, I was definitely probably a little more laid back. It's funny coming from junior college in California. Everyone called me the California cool kid, and I was like, guys, I'm from Oregon, so I don't know how that's possible. But coming from junior college in California, but I think each person is their own, right? It's hard to sit up here and say that, like, I know what they go through and all these things. Like, yeah, I played the position, but each person is unique in their own way. Like Mendoza, probably got to the point where he was at Cal and never thought he was going to get the opportunity to go to Indiana and play at the level that he's playing at today. So I think there might be so much more extra emotion thinking that he was going to go to Indiana and just do his best. And then now they're in a place to win a national title and he's winning the Heisman. I think that's hard also to deal with, and controlling your emotions when you probably never thought that you would actually get the opportunity to do those things. You know what I mean? And so,
yeah,
I think he's got a chance. You look at like JJ McCarthy and these guys that, like JJ's only even played a half a football season in his whole career. You know what I mean? So you can't give up on JJ now. I don't know what type of quarterback Mendoza is going to be in the NFL. I don't know how he's going to transition. I think he's got some competitive nature. He's a tough kid. He's got a great arm slide. He throws the ball, vertically very well. So I think he's got a chance, you know what I mean, to be pretty good. I don't think you can compare him to Peyton Manning, you know what I mean? But
a little early. It's a little early. All right, Travis, it really comes down to this. Now, I'm not so worried about the first round games. I did get word that I am going to get to see the Ducks play at Autzen Stadium one more time this season, which, by the time people hear this, that ship will have sailed. But it looks like the atmospheric river is going to stop for a hot second and allow us to play a football game, which is pretty nice.
Yeah.
But my question for you is, I'm doing what all Duck fans are doing and looking right past the first round. And then there's the Texas Tech situation. But I just want to get out even farther than that. Like, we talked a little earlier about if the Ducks could get the job done against Tech. What happens if Oregon gets through to the semifinal?
Yeah.
Indiana gets through to the semifinal. And then on the other side, you get the big dogs, Ohio State and Georgia, which a lot of people, it's the easy prediction to put all four of them there. And likely somebody will fall out of it. But if it's those four, first of all, you can tell me if you disagree with that four count. But if it is those four, what do you think will happen? Who makes the final and who takes it down?
Yeah. I think first, I think the Oregon Texas Tech game, I think could be just an awesome game, number one, right? And I think it could go down to the end. I think you got two good football teams. I think I'm going to give the slight edge to Oregon. I think only because I'm a Pacific Northwest kid, but I do think Oregon's defense is pretty good. They're a top 5-6 defense in the country, I think. And so I think as long as the QB plays well and they don't turn the ball over against the game, I think they come out of there towards the end to win. The Oregon, Indiana, and I think, obviously Ohio State, and Georgia, I think Georgia's a really good football team. I know that they lost early to Alabama. I think their biggest thing is can they score points in the red zone? And can they score touchdowns in the red zone? So it's going to be kind of unique, but the Oregon Indiana game, if I'm putting Oregon Indiana in, which I think I am, and then Ohio State and obviously Georgia, I think number one is like, I think I said this earlier, but it's hard to beat a team twice. You know what I mean? I think it's going to be tough for Indiana to beat Oregon, but I do think Indiana beats Oregon. I think Indiana just has something different than all these other teams in college football. I think they got a fantastic quarterback. I think their defense plays at the high level. And I think it comes down to, honestly, I think they play with swag because of their coach. Their coach is just different. He's
Yeah.
very outspoken. Obviously he thinks very well of himself, but I think that's contagious. You know what I mean? And I think these teams that want to win it down the stretch, they got to be contagious and convicted with whatever they're doing, and I just think Indiana kind of has that it factor. I don't know what it is, but I just think Indiana has an it factor. The game where I think is going to be unique is the Ohio State Georgia game. Man, I really want to pick Georgia. I really do. I think they're early mix up with Alabama, but I think they showed so much dominance in the championship game coming into the college football playoff predictions of where they were going to land. So the Ohio State Georgia game, I think, is going to be a war. I do think Ohio State is probably a better football team, but I think Georgia's peaking too. So it's going to be kind of a unique game. I think I'm going to pick Georgia. Just because I think Georgia's just they got a little bit. I think they got some momentum coming down. Obviously Ohio State and Indiana game towards the end of the year with the Big Ten championship game, where Indiana kind of, snuck their way out of there a little bit too. And, so I think it's going to come down to Indiana, Georgia, and I'm going to go with Indiana. I think it's kind of a cool story. And it'd be fun to watch a team like that kind of win it, just based on over the years of we've seen Alabama and the Georgias and all these teams that have always had success and always winning. It'd be fun to see somebody new win. I don't know. I kind of just want them to, I'm kind of rooting for them just because I want to see somebody else win.
Yeah, the Ohio State thing gets super old. I mean, there's a couple takeaways with what you said. I don't totally disagree with any of it. I don't like hearing it, but I don't disagree. I don't disagree with a lot of it. Cignetti is special. The coach for Indiana is a special guy, and if we didn't have Dan Lanning, you'd want a guy like that. I'd say it's swag versus swag in that semifinal. Dan Lanning is a leader of men in a whole nother way. He could take you into battle like William Wallace. But also Cignetti, I've always liked his killer instinct. It's funny, when he played Oregon, though, he was mum. He didn't say a word. And then once you got to the late in the third quarter, early fourth, and that grin started to come back, and he knew that his mojo had been revived, because he didn't want to give the Ducks any fuel. My only question for you ahead of that, because, it's a fair prediction. They're the number one team in the country. Do you think there's a chance that they peaked too early? The celebration at the Big Ten championship, and they treated it like they won the title right there. I liken it to winning the NBA Cup, and then you get so excited, and then you don't win the title. Is there a chance that they got up too high, or you think that Cignetti can? I
mean that's legit. That's a legit question. You know what I mean? I think it's always kind of hard too when you have that big of a moment and then you got a couple weeks off, because now they're not going to play, obviously, for another couple weeks, and Oregon's going to get a chance to kind of, push through some of those things by playing JMU, and then giving themselves another opportunity to prepare for Indiana. So, I think it might be a little bit slow at first, but I believe, man, if you're good enough and you really want it, you'll step up at the right times. I really do. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I think Oregon, Indiana, Ohio State, and Georgia really all have what it takes to win it all. I really do. Based on, their coaches. I think all four coaches are fantastic. I think all four have pretty good QBs, and all four have pretty good defenses. They all rate up there, in the top 5-8 in the country. And so, it's going to come down to execution, touchdowns in the red zone, and the turnover game with all two of those games, the two semifinal games. And then obviously when you get into the national title game. So I don't think so. I think they'll be just fine. I think there'll be a little bit of maybe early on, just those first couple series maybe, but man, when those juices get flowing, man, your game changes. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you've got Indiana and you said Georgia, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then Indiana to take it all. So I'm obviously in the Ducks shirt. I have to say the Ducks to the final. And now I'm afraid, though, because if it's Georgia, I could pick the Ducks. Ohio State is kind of like kryptonite. But I can promise you, anyone who's in the Big Ten or has ever been in the Big Ten knows what a royal pain in the ass the fans are at Ohio State. even when they come to your town, they're just obnoxious, and they buy all the tickets and they steal all the hotel rooms, and they come into the place. And I know you're in Ohio, and that's a tough deal, but like I just like to see them lose. So I'm going to take Georgia and Oregon in the final, and as an absolute homer, I'll take the Ducks to finally get it done. And this time, there's no play in the final that screws them over. You look at both the times that they went before. Ohio State, Ezekiel Elliott running for 300 yards in a belly shirt. I mean, talk about embarrassing. And then the dire situation years ago against Auburn where the Ducks tackle the running back and he lands on our belly. There's a lot of belly button action in our two finals. And then they run away with the game and Scam Newton gets a title and a statue at Auburn. So I say the Ducks take it down this time. If they run into Ohio State, I'm not so sure. But we hopefully you and I can circle back if we get close to that championship game and see where your mind's at then after we get a little bit of a sample size.
Yeah, I also look forward to your apology too. I think it's going to be fantastic.
The Mendoza apology
on the Mendoza crying, but I calling his mom mommy. But I look forward to that. But no,
it's not just me. Did you see that one of the guys on the Raiders who's the great defensive player, Crosby, he's like, dude, you see the video of that guy? Like, and he was trying not to say the things that I'm saying, but I looked into his eyes and he was thinking everything that I'm saying. But there's a good chance that Mendoza is the Raiders quarterback next year.
There's a good chance in a lot of things. Yeah.
Oh my God, Travis. Sorry, last thing I have to tell you. So go look up. So after the Heisman Trophy gets presented, he goes into the street and he shows off his trophies and he dances around with his buddies. But then he goes to like a Heisman after party where they all get together and like it's all the winners. And have you seen this where he approaches Ricky Williams?
No, I have not. No.
Oh my God, he goes up to Ricky freaking Williams and he's like, "Hey man, I really enjoyed you growing up, like I really did." And he's like, "Great," basically like kind of half blowing him off of being kind. Mendoza leans in for like the hand grab bro hug. It is so amazing. If I do apologize, I'm posting that into the comments because there has to be an asterisk. But I will do that. I will dress up real nice, and I'm a t-shirt guy, but I will dress up real nice, and I will apologize, and I will send that video directly to you, Travis.
I appreciate it. Maybe it's me getting older, and in my older age, I just get a little bit softer, my kids and stuff. But But I don't know. I just think there's a little passion there. I know it's a little sensitive, but like whatever he's doing it at a high level, and the guys around him are rallying around him. And then obviously their coach is got some swag. So I just think it's a cool story. I don't know if they really have what it takes to fully, go in and win the whole thing down the stretch, but man, I'm picking them just because, like I said, I'm not a big Ohio State fan, obviously, even though I am 1-0 against them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
you'll always
as a college football player, but I think it's a cool story, man. I think it'd be really fun for college football, even without all this, these whole the committee and all these things, how they do things. I still think it'd be really fun, to see somebody new win it. So it'd be cool,
Yeah, and I will be happy to see them over Ohio State or even Georgia again. It's just repeat with these schools. So we're looking forward to it. We'll find out who's got anything going here when we get back after the new year because, of course, a lot of New Year's games there. I'm going to be out at the coast, and I'm going to be making sure that I watch all those games. And I'm really hoping the next time I see you, I can still sport some Duck attire, and maybe I'll wear something more neutral so other people across the country can be surprised when I pick Oregon to continue to win.
Yeah, maybe my Christmas gift to you will be a Mendoza T-shirt with his face plaqued on there, and you can wear it in the podcast.
And then it just says, "This is why we go camping." Oh, that guy. All right, it's Travis Cole, the great football player at all levels, and it's so great to see you and to have a chance to sit down. And I can't wait to have you on again sometime soon. And have a great New Year, bud.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you, man. You did a fantastic job, so I appreciate you bringing me on and look forward to it, man. You guys have awesome holidays, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Cheers, bud.